The Washington Capitals have been making a late playoff push, but do they have enough time to finish the job? Dan Holmi of Locked On Capitals joins us to discuss that and what's next for Alex Ovechkin coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $250 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Capitals, Dan Holmi. And Dan, this team has been playing some darn good hockey as of late, but is it too little too late?
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling that it might be, but I don't want to write them off. You know, the cockroach caps, as they've been called here in the latter part of the season, well, they just won't go away. And, the especially hard part for me, and where was this team earlier, right? That they're pouring it on. They take down two against Pittsburgh, a Pittsburgh team that's a lot better than I think a lot of people had thought to start the season. And the additions late in the season of Cole Hudson and Ilya Protas, who, I think, it was kind of tempered expectations like, well, play him sheltered minutes. We don't want to push him in there. Cole Hudson scores a goal, albeit an empty netter in his first game. And Ilya Protas, who is playing on a line with Alexei and Tom Wilson, 700 pounds on that line, has been a game changer, scored a goal here already. So it's difficult because I wish those players would have been able to join the team earlier. But I think the Capitals might surprise people. I guess it all depends upon if they, in fact, win the game on Tuesday and if they get a little bit of help in the Metro there as well.
What has been different besides the two young additions that you just mentioned between the early part of the season when they were struggling and this team that just has really turned it on lately?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing is, and a lot of people will point to this, is that Pierre-Luc Dubois, got injured really early in the season, plays primarily second-line center for this team, and a big game changer. So when you're minus your second-line center and you have Justin Sourdif fill in, who, let's be honest with you, was penciled in to be a fourth-line winger, and to be clear here, did a good job, it was always the next man up, and the depth on this team was never enough. And it kind of goes all back to, the Capitals made it to the playoffs last year, got eliminated in the second rounds, that Chris Patrick, the GM of this team, didn't go out and do anything to bolster this team. And then you couple that with the fact that many of the players last season put up career numbers. And, the thought was, what are the odds of, these players that put up career numbers being able to do it 2 years in a row? You take a look at Alex Ovechkin, for example, 32 goals. Last season, 44, that kind of thing. Tom Wilson, 30 goals. Now he has 33 as 33 last year. So those are the kind of things, that kind of turn into the big things that when players put up career numbers, it's hard to duplicate that kind of success. So I would say that's the biggest thing.
Talk to me about Ryan Leonard, young player, a lot of expectations, not getting a lot of attention, but I think quietly having a pretty good season.
Yeah, I mean, just absolutely pouring it on in the latter part of this season. And he joined the Capitals in their playoff push last year. And if memory serves, he got like that one empty netter goal. And I'm like, this is the guy, back-to-back 30-goal seasons at Boston College, that I thought maybe it was a swing and miss by the organization. And then, got off to a bit of a slower start this season, but, has since absolutely poured it on here as of late. And it's a good thing, right? Because now 20 goals is, and it kind of makes you look about what he's going to be next year. But I think the biggest thing is the faith that was put into him by Spencer Carberry. And one of the things that Spencer said is this is a guy that has knocked it out of the park at every stage of his career, whether it was playing, international hockey or whether it was playing at Boston College or whatever the case might be. that he's got to learn to fail. And that's one of the things that he had to do. But in that same breath, Spencer Carberry, the Capitals organization, never lost faith in him. They knew that intrinsically what kind of player he is. And I think, it's kind of interesting that you can kind of draw lines that when Cole Hudson joined this team and there's this youth infusion, that I think to a certain extent they start to kind of feed off each other, and it kind of gets you excited about the future of having Cole, Ryan, and Ilya Protas all out on the ice next season.
What has gone wrong with the power play this year? 27th in the league. You know the names, you know the talent that's out there on the ice. Why the struggles?
The thing of it is they've tried different pieces on the power play, and it's one of the things that I talk about on the show all the time, that in the preseason, people always said, well, Dan, give it time, they'll figure it out. It has been the weakness of this team this year, and you think about all of the opportunities, of course, to be Captain Obvious, if they would have converted on many of those power play goals, that they would have won more games. What a novel thought. It's really kind of hard to really draw lines. It's just always been disjointed this season, that when you saw him in there, and, Spencer Carberry said that I'm going to try to make some changes, but I'm not going to get too aggressive. He said that a few months ago, and then he realized this just isn't working. And you've seen other players that have been added to the power play that has, given this team some success. So I think that at least to a certain extent, you could say that that's part of it. You have Leonard on the power play right now, and also Cole Hudson on the second unit. That Cole Hudson is a game changer. And next season, I think that power play is going to even be exponentially better. It's kind of like this all kind of goes back to, if I'm going to talk about the Capitals too little, too late, that they're figuring it out. The power play is, I think going to be better next year with Cole Hudson and fully realized, but just has kind of been a swing and a miss this entire season. Can't pin it down definitively, but I think that it's kind of just a story of the Capitals in general, that they're not as good of a team this year that they were last year.
Is this the last NHL season for Alexander Ovechkin?
Yeah, I absolutely think that it is. And I think that if he was non-committal on his future, I think it was made that much more clear when John Carlson was traded out. And you also saw Nick Dowd. John Carlson, a pillar, has been for years, and Nick Dowd is a big locker room guy and just really loves. So I think that he kind of sees the sea change with this team, that it is headed into a younger direction. And, and I've even talked about this last summer, that I think that Wayne Gretzky catching and passing him, that was his above all end all. He wanted to do that. He won a Stanley Cup in 2018. That I think that when Capitals fans, they say that they want Alex Ovechkin to play 1, 2, 3 or more years, that's more the fans projecting their wants onto Alex Ovechkin. But when you see the comments, when you see him, doing all the jersey exchanges with all the players, when you see him doing these extended autograph sessions and his kids at the podium, and just all the different things, that you can tell he is saying it without saying it. But he kind of likes to keep us guessing, because after the game today, the Pittsburgh Penguins players wanted to do the handshake line, and he's like, no, we still got games left to play. And then you have Evgeny Malkin, who is friends with Alex Ovechkin, saying after the game that, no, I think he's still hungry. He wants to play. Okay, so I think that Alex Ovechkin, he didn't want to have it that, every stop along the way, hey, what is it like playing the last time at Madison Square Garden? What's it like playing the last time in Pittsburgh, which he had in this game? And I was listening to the game telling my wife, this is exactly what he didn't want, was this, hey, this could be the last time to catch Ovi and Sidney Crosby together. He really is not all about that. He's a bit more of a humble player than he was in his younger days. So to answer your question, I think this is his last season. And I think that he has checked all the boxes. I think that he's 40 years old, 21st season in the league, that he doesn't want to go down the same road that previous Capitals like Nick Backstrom, who had the hip injuries, and TJ Oshie with the back issues, that if he could go out on top, instead of in a whimper, scoring 30-plus goals at 40 years old, I think that is how he wants to write his own ending.
What is the impact on the team next year if he's not back?
Well, see, that's the thing that before, because when you took, you were thinking Cole Hudson, when you were thinking Ilya Protas, it was all hopes, fingers crossed that these players were going to turn into the players that we had hoped. But now that those players are legit, that you're seeing them actually perform on an elite level in the NHL, I think that changes things because, I think one of the promises that was made to Alex Ovechkin is that while he was here, he was never going to face a tear it down to the studs rebuild. And, a couple summers ago, Brian McClellan was able to make some moves and make it a winning team. So I think the Capitals will make more changes this summer. I don't think it's going to be as of a robust rebuild or retool as initially thought because the likes of Hudson, Protas, these kind of guys are far exceeding it. But I still think you do need to make complementary pieces around him for this team to be a lot better as far as where he plays that first line left wing. I think that Ivan Miroshnichenko would be a possibility. I think that an Andrew Crystal down in Hershey would be an option as well. So I think that, there'll be some internal options, but I think that Chris Patrick, I hope, will be a bit more aggressive in this offseason than he was last offseason.
All right, Dan, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps, and of course, available wherever you find your podcasts and on YouTube.
All right, Dan, thanks. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? You're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast. But that's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all your subscriptions in one spot. It can help you cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you could set budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a cleaner picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Check it out today.